Right, everyone, Monday morning, a brand new week. And we've got a comment, and I was getting a bit worried there, Ryan, because we started promptly today. This will mean nothing to those of you who watch later on in the day. But for those of you watching live, we started promptly today, and there wasn't a single comment in at the point of us going live. And I was beginning to think it might just be me and you, Ryan. But Jerry is the idea they come now, Charles and Chris and Mark. And right, enough. There's enough good mornings. Now, good morning, everyone. Lovely to have you with us. Ryan, lovely to have you with me. How are you getting on?
Yeah, things are good. Start of another exciting week, you would hope, following and covering Celtic. It's been pretty good these past couple of weeks. Feel like the good feeling is still there from games previous. A good game at the weekend, a good home win, comfortable home win. And now there's the daunting task of the Allianz Arena for Celtic versus Bayern Munich. But it's the stage that you want Celtic to be on, and yeah, delighted to be getting in and talking about it.
It is pretty daunting, isn't it? I mean, I was thinking earlier, could we really do it tomorrow night? And there'll always be a big part of me that believes it's possible tomorrow night. And of course, it's possible. We weren't that far off them in the game at Celtic Park. But it's a tough ask, isn't it? Especially when you know what Celtic are like generally in Europe. So I guess I'll ask you how you're feeling about tomorrow night, and I'll ask everyone else. Let us know right now, Monday morning. What are we? 36 odd hours away, probably less than that. 34 hours, I think, away from kickoff. How are you feeling about tomorrow night?
Yeah, it's no doubt about it. As I said at the start, it is a daunting task going to the Allianz Arena. It's a very difficult place to go to and score goals, especially when you're needing 2 goals at least to qualify. That's whilst keeping a clean sheet against the might of Bayern Munich. Granted, Bayer Leverkusen did that at the weekend, but I'd say they've got a slightly better squad than Celtic at this moment in time. It was nothing each between Bayern Munich and Leverkusen. Bit of a drab game, I heard. I heard that Bayern Munich were really, really poor on the night. After about 70 minutes, they had 0 XG, 0 shots, and 0 shots on target, which is quite baffling. But I think that shows you just how well Bayer Leverkusen have done over the past couple of years to really break into being one of those top sides in the Bundesliga. Obviously, they won the title last season. They're trailing a bit behind, and that result on Saturday essentially made Bayern Munich the overwhelming favourites to go and get their cup back, to go and get their Bundesliga back. I was going to say cup, it's more like a shield that they lift at the end of the season, isn't it, the Bundesliga one? But, I don't know if Celtic will use that as a blueprint, play like that, and they might get something over in Munich. But it is a very, very tough ask. They're filled with superstars. We've seen that last week, even though they weren't at their best for parts of that game, they still did show their quality from the likes of Michael Olise, Harry Kane, Joshua Kimmich. They're all really good players. There's a reason why they're playing for Bayern Munich. So it's a tough ask, but that Daizen Maeda goal, it was the last goal in the contest, and they're still in the tie. So there's only 1 goal in it. If Celtic were to get an early goal in Munich, you never know what could happen. But it's a big ask, but I'm still looking forward to it all the same. And I'm feeling slightly optimistic. We'll see how that goes when the game starts. But at this moment in time, I'm feeling pretty okay about Celtic at the moment.
Yeah, I think, there's a fair bit of realism there. We're going to Bayern Munich. I had this stat earlier that I'll try and now remember from my mind. I think it was that the last time they lost at home in the Champions League was April 2021, which might not sound like a long time ago, but it was 20 games ago. So they've gone 20 games without a defeat at home. And in that time, I think they've played Real Madrid, who won the tournament that year. They've played Man City, who won the tournament that year. They went to the Allianz and they're unbeaten. And obviously, we need to go and beat them tomorrow night in 90 minutes to have any chance of going through. So yeah, it's the realism is there, but I think we're all going to be feeling when the teams come out tomorrow night. You just never know. It's one of those things that if we start well in the game, I think, Wazza Boy touching on exactly how I feel. Don't lose the first goal, and especially don't lose an early first goal tomorrow. I mean, I'll be totally honest, that's my big fear about tomorrow night, is that it's a repeat of Dortmund or a repeat of Villa Park as well. I think we need a similar defensive performance to what we saw away to Atalanta. Get through, take it 15 minutes at a time, get through the first 15, get to half an hour. And then maybe as the game goes on, if you're still goalless, you're only a goal away in the tie, you can possibly nick something and their fans maybe start to get on their team's back, and just everything just gets a little bit restless. That's my big thing. My fear is that, we lose an early goal, and then a bit like Dortmund or Villa Park, we lose another one relatively quickly, and the game and the tie's kind of over. So, yeah, it's over to Celtic tomorrow. Wombat just doesn't want a thumping tomorrow. Sean reckons we'll go out, but has a feeling the game will be close enough. And Jason saying the fact that Ida played the full game on Saturday leads me to think Maeda will start up the middle. I think that's the way things might be heading, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there will be a couple of changes, and I think Saturday's performance will play a factor or play a part in the makeup of the team. For example, at left back position, I think if you're going to play Jota on the left and Daizen Maeda through the middle, you're starting to see, even though there was only one game between them, you see a connection, a partnership between Jeffrey Schlupp and Jota. He understands where to be and where to allow Jota to be out on that wide, out on the left wing. I just thought it was a really impressive first half performance, in particular from Jeffrey Schlupp. He looks like a Premier League player. You can see why he's also been deployed as a midfielder in his career as well, because he understands the inverted role. In some ways, he's the perfect Celtic signing if Celtic want to play inverted football, because he's a fullback that can play in the middle of the park. I was really impressed with his performance. I thought he looked really good in person on Saturday. Did tire towards, the middle of the second half, but it's to be expected. He's been in and out of games over the course of the season for both Crystal Palace and, starting these sort of couple of appearances at Celtic. But I do like that partnership that's beginning to form between Jota and Jeffrey Schlupp, and I think both of them will start on tomorrow night in the Allianz Arena. Yeah, I do. And I think Maeda will play through the middle just for his pressing. I think with the likes of Upamecano, and I believe that Kim Min-jae will probably come back in for this game. I know they rested him last week, but I would expect him to come back into the side. I want somebody like Daizen Maeda to be pressing them, because they do have a mistake in them, the two of them. I know they're high-level defenders, but they've shown at the highest level, especially Upamecano, and we did speak about this last week before the game, he can make mistakes. He should have been punished in the first leg with that tackle. I still cannot believe. I know that he won the ball, but then he proceeds to go and stud Arne Engels in the box. For me, it's a penalty. You want him to be making mistakes like that in the home leg. You want him to be being a wee bit lackadaisical on the ball, because the likes of Daizen Maeda, he will punish you if you stay on the ball for too long, or if you give him an inch, he'll take a mile, basically. So for me, Maeda starts up front, and I would play Jota. These are the games that Jota came back to Celtic for, especially away from home when you need an out ball. I think you'll play Jota on the right, Maeda on the left. Kuhn on the right, Maeda on the left. No, Jota on the left and Maeda through the middle.
As well, you're not picking the team, Ryan, because I'm
keeping Vincent Kompany guessing. I'm probably also keeping Brendan Rodgers guessing, and I'm so used to saying Maeda out on the left that the fact that this new dynamic of him playing through the middle due to Kyogo's departure has got my brain absolutely frazzled. But yeah, Maeda through the middle, Jota on the left, and Nicholas Kuhn on the right.
See, when you're mentioning Maeda, I don't know if people came across this. I've just remembered when you were talking about my stat of the weekend, UEFA or the Champions League account put up various stats for the tournament so far, and one of them was the number of sprints carried out by players. And we all kind of know that Daizen Maeda is pretty remarkable in terms of his engine and his general fitness. But people probably don't realise just how special he is, because UEFA put this up, and I wish I actually could put it on screen, but basically on match day 9, Daizen Maeda had 53 sprints. That would have been the first leg, more than any other player in Europe or in the Champions League. Match day, he obviously missed match day 8 at Villa Park. Match day 7, he had 45 sprints. It was also the most of any player in the Champions League. Match day 6, he was second. Match day 5, he was second. Match day 4, he was first. In match day 3, he was second. Like his the amount of sprints he carries out in a game is otherworldly, even when you put it up against the fittest, most peak condition players in Europe and in the world, to be honest. And I agree totally with you that I would start him up front tomorrow, and I think he will start. And I think Ita's a good sub to have off the bench as well. That'll mean Jota plays on the left, Kuhn on the right. I'm less sure that Schlupp will start. Personally, I would start him. I thought he was great at the weekend. We can come back and talk about that a little bit. I think the fact that he knows Michael Olise from Crystal Palace pretty well would be a big factor for me. And I hope, I mean, it's a daft thing to say, but I hope Brendan Rodgers is aware of that. I hope Jeff Schlupp's taking Rodgers to the side and saying, I know this guy, like I trained with him, I know what he does, I know him better than Greg Taylor. It's nothing against Greg Taylor, but when we saw how effective Olise was last week, he was Bayern's best player for me at Celtic Park.
Some distance.
Obviously scores the first goal. Put him up against someone who knows him well, and Jeff Schlupp on Wednesday night. So I would play Schlupp at left back. I just feel like it will be Greg Taylor. Thought Greg Taylor looked a little bit shaky when he came on at the weekend, so that would be another reason to potentially put Schlupp in for me.
Yeah, he's in a bit of a difficult situation, Greg Taylor, because I assume that he's got a lot on his mind. He's probably thinking about his next move. Don't think he will sign a new deal with Celtic, because I think if he was to have done that, he would have already done it by now. That would have already happened by now. So he's clearly thinking about that. Maybe not. It might not be at the forefront of his mind, but it'll definitely be in there. He'd be like, right, where am I going in the summer? What? And maybe that's to do with his maybe slight downturn in performance. But he's a reliable player, and if Celtic were to call upon him on tomorrow night, then I'm sure he would perform admirably. But it was so unlucky. The goal was unlucky from Greg Taylor's perspective, because it bounces the wrong way, and you give Olise half a yard of space, he's going to take that, and it's a tremendous goal from a tremendous young player. I watched him last season for Crystal Palace in a bit of detail. He's upped it since he's went to Bayern Munich. Vincent Kompany has improved him since he's moved to the Bundesliga. Seems like a bit of a perfect move. I think he was actually linked with Manchester United as well, and I think he'll be quite delighted that he didn't make that move to Old Trafford, considering the way that they are at the moment. A tremendous young player. I think he's 23 years old. He's only going to get better. I just hope that he has a quiet night tomorrow, and I hope that Jeffrey Schlupp contributes to that, because if he does have knowledge of playing against Olise, because he's trained with him in both their Crystal Palace days, then I think that's something that's got to be utilised. Because if you keep Olise quiet, yes, they've got a load of other superstars all over the pitch, but he seemed to be the real bright spark against Celtic in the first leg. He's a player definitely with an upwards trajectory, and I think Celtic need to keep him quiet tomorrow night.
I thought he was really good on Saturday, Schlupp. As you kind of touched on, I think a lot of people will have seen this, but I like the fact that he allowed Jota to have space. Like the amount of times, it would actually often, Schlupp wouldn't even be involved in the move. It would be Austin Trusty coming out from the back out onto the left-hand side, spreading it wide to Jota, and Schlupp would just be standing in field, giving Jota the space to eye up the Dundee United right back. And the thing about Jota is, as we know, he can go either way, and he's just like an absolute nightmare to defend against. I think the way you can maybe stop Jota sometimes is like doubling up against him or forcing him into a crowded area, and he's clearly not as effective. But I thought Schlupp was just really good, quite selfless, to be honest, just standing there, getting involved from time to time, but generally just taking up an area, almost like an attacking midfielder, and allowing Jota the space. So yeah, that was the left-hand side was really positive for me at the weekend. And I thought I'd probably say Jota and Schlupp were two of my kind of best performances. I thought Callum McGregor was good as well. Adam Maeda got his goal, which was great at the end as well, so he'll be confident going into the game. But yeah, it's obviously just a totally different task for us tomorrow night, and as I say, getting through the early stages. But I think having I don't know if belief is the right word, because I don't think Celtic were like overawed last week. I think you saw that in the first minute, the way we created that move that was obviously the offside goal. That wasn't like a team that was overawed. That was a team ready for the challenge. I just felt at times when we got the ball, we didn't do enough with it, or our pass just wasn't quite right, or maybe it was just a little bit of like belief, really believe you're going to score rather than just hoping you are. So I think if we get the ball tomorrow, we really need to have that. Brendan Rodgers has been speaking about that in the lead up to the game, saying we always want to keep our boldness, but our humility is important as well. And I think reading between the lines, what he's saying there is when you've got the ball, go and express yourself, be bold, but also let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not have a Dortmund here where we get a bit excited. I think what he said the other day that when we got an equaliser in Dortmund, players got a bit excited. So we obviously can't have that tomorrow at all. But also, you don't want to just go out the tournament with a whimper. Like you don't want it just to be like a. I know some people are saying, I think a few comments in already saying that generally people would accept just a kind of a narrowish defeat, 2-0, something like that. And I get that, because I guess the fear would be that it would be another Dortmund. But for me, like, you really just, you don't want to just go out and be kind of wondering, what if we'd had a bit more go there? Let's really go and be resolute defensively, not give them anything easy. But when we get the ball, let's go and try and score goals tomorrow night, because I think the Bayern defence does give you chances, and we saw that in the final half an hour last night. So that's my hope for tomorrow, but it's just so difficult.
It definitely is. For me, I want to see the blueprint replicated of the likes of, I know it was pre-season, but you look at Chelsea and Man City, the way that Celtic played, you soak up the pressure. I know it's pre-season and you can only base so much of that on the fact that those teams were going through the motions in terms of getting their fitness right, but soaking up pressure and then hitting them on the counter-attack when possible, but not going overboard when it comes to the counter-attack, just being smart and effective and using those ways he's moved on. But you want, if Maeda is to play, and you want him to be holding up the ball and being in the right place at the right time. For Jota and Kun, those are two really talented wingers who can cause any team problems. We need to give them service. Celtic need to give them service. That's where the likes of Arne Engels is going to be important. He's going to be that connector between the defence, the midfield, and the wingers in the attack. So he's going to need to show his Bundesliga experience and know-how. He didn't have the greatest performance at the Signal Iduna Park. So I guess he'll be looking for a better performance this time out against the German team, is basically what I'm trying to say. He was great against Leipzig. So, he's kind of mixed. He's one each now at the moment. I want him to really come alive versus Bayern Munich and show his quality, because Vincent Kompany knows all about him. He was speaking about him pre-match before the home leg. I want him to be raving about him after the game. Not going and signing him, but raving about him after the game and saying he was a real difference maker for Celtic on the night.
I think I just really want Engels especially, but I guess there's other players as well, just really go out and really announce yourself at the top level. Like, yep. I felt Engels generally had a good first leg, but there were a few times, there's one in particular in the first half, and I spoke about it last week. I think it was like a 3-on-2 we had, and the pass was just a bit sloppy. Like, that kind of thing, I just feel he does a little bit too much, and that, like, you get into a good area, and he doesn't do this domestically, really, I don't think, but it's just like the real big European games against the top teams, maybe just panics a little bit. And I just want to see real quality from him tomorrow, because we know he has that. If you get into a good area, get your head up, find a pass, because that could be the difference tomorrow night. That's my kind of my big thing about Celtic. We don't have as much of an issue with it at Celtic Park, because I think we really even last week we played some really good stuff at times against a top team. Away from home, we seem to struggle just to play that same football. You know what I mean? It's like, it just seems like we struggle to keep the ball away from home. And to be fair, that's been a thing with me watching Celtic my whole lifetime. I think away from home in Europe, that we just seem to give the ball away under little pressure. I'd just love to see it tomorrow night, that this team just really, really arrives on the big stage. And even if we don't go through, just prove that you really belong at the biggest of stages. Because if we go out narrowly tomorrow night, I think there'll be disappointment, but I think generally people will be pretty emboldened by that, and then we can look forward to next season feeling, really good about ourselves in Europe. So I guess that's the main thing for me tomorrow night. Go out and don't capitulate like you have at times this season. Let's see an Atalanta performance, but with a bit of added quality going forward.
That was exactly what I was going to say. Do an Atalanta, but have a sharp edge at the attacking end of the park. Show a wee bit of fight, show a wee bit of quality up front. They've got that quality on the wings. Nicholas Kuhn, Jota, two players that have done it in Europe before, that have done it in the Champions League before for Celtic. They've got that experience. Kuhn's got experience of doing it this season for Celtic in the Champions League against RB Leipzig. And Maeda, who is just so important. He'll start, of course, he'll start, but it's about where he'll start. Will he start on the left, or will he start through the middle? It doesn't matter as long as he is playing and pressing the opposition and really being a nuisance to the Bayern Munich. The Bayern Munich defence. He's done it for Japan. He did it in the World Cup. He's played against top level opposition. Scored against Spain. Was it against Germany, rather? Was it against Germany that he scored?
Who was that, sorry?
Dyson Maeda for Japan in the World Cup 2022.
I think it was Croatia.
He's used to playing at this level. He's good enough to play at this level. Yes, there are positives and negatives to his performance. Sometimes he'll do things that will baffle you, like he'll play the ball out, he'll overhit a cross or something, but you just shrug them off. I was speaking to somebody at the weekend about that. You just shrug them off because the pros outweigh the cons when it comes to Dyson Maeda. He's really got this hero status at the club now. You can hear it even when he's coming onto the pitch as a sub, as is what happened at the weekend. The biggest cheer was for Dyson Maeda coming on. People are understanding and respecting what he brings to the side. He's not a perfect footballer, but he doesn't need to be, because the pros outweigh the cons in terms of what he can bring to this club. I'd love him to be the hero tomorrow night, because he already is the hero for this domestic season, I would say. I think he's the front runner for Player of the Year at the moment. If he could go and do something in the Champions League to get Celtic into the next round, against the odds against Bayern Munich, you think his hero status would only increase and grow in size, really.
Yeah. Again, it's just
it really doesn't matter who. I would just anybody. I'd take 2 own goals at this point.
Harry Kane own goals, 2 of them, please. Maeda, it did make a big difference, didn't it, in the second half or the final half an hour when he was playing up front. So I think that would be interesting to see. He can cause anyone issues, because he's just such a pest for defence. They never get a minute, and they don't know what he's going to do at all. And I think in a game like that tomorrow night, where Bayern want everything to be settled and they want control and all of that stuff, just throwing a spanner in the works, a bit of Dyson Maeda just bobbling one in or running off someone or making something happen with his running. Yeah, I'm definitely for that. We did have someone making a point, though. T-Boy, it was saying Jota doesn't give the same defensive cover as Maeda, and I feel like that's more important at the start of the game. That's a fair point as well, clearly. But, I mean, it's like, I was going to say Maeda can't play 2 positions. He probably could, but... Yeah. You're only going to play him either up front or on the left wing, obviously.
Nobody is going to match Dyson Maeda for his defensive work. He's the top player in terms of numbers, especially on the attacking side of the pitch for defensive work, game on game, especially in Europe. He's so good at pressurising the opponent and making the opponent make mistakes. Just touching on that point that you made about the sprints, Brendan Rodgers said at the start of the season that he's world class at this, and he's one of the best in the world in terms of pressing the opponents. There's the stats to back up that. A lot of people, maybe fans of other clubs, would say, "Oh, there's Brendan Rodgers saying another soundbite for the media." He's right. Look at the stats. He's one of the best. But if you're the best in the Champions League.
I don't think he is one of the best. I think he is the best, because you look at his stats.
I can't think of anybody else.
First, second, first, second. So that would suggest that he's doing more sprints than anyone else. And as I keep saying, the best club competition in world football. Like, that's what we're dealing with here. He might be the fittest footballer on the planet.
Yeah. And the good thing is that his whole game has improved under Brendan Rodgers, because I think he's defensively more mature than what he was under Ange Postecoglou. Yes, he would still put in a shift for Ange Postecoglou, but I think he's picking his moments as well. He's picking his sprints effectively. Now he's bringing that Japan form, that Yokohama F. Marinos form, to Celtic. He's now got the same goal scoring record as what he did in Japan, and that's an achievement in itself, because I thought that maybe that level wasn't in him, that he wasn't. He didn't have that quality to be a consistent goal scorer. He'd maybe score a goal every 4 or 5 games for Celtic. It's now a surprise when he isn't scoring for Celtic in a game at the moment. It's a surprise at the weekend. He only got half an hour. Surprising that he didn't get on the score sheet. I mean, I can't remember the last time, apart from Saturday, when he didn't score at home for Celtic. It's honestly been happening most weeks for the past few months. And I think it's kind of went under the radar, because people talk about his defensive work, but his attacking numbers this season are absolutely tremendous. They're completely rivaling Nicholas Kuhn at the moment, and he looked like a certainty to be Celtic's player of the season in terms of an attacking force. Seems as if Daizen Maeda has done that late press and is now overtaken
Literally.
him. It's just a complete anomaly of a footballer, but that's why the Celtic support and people who cover Celtic absolutely adore him, because he puts in the hard yards and he's getting the numbers that these hard yards deserve.
Right, Mark McQueen, imagine we won 1-0 and it went to penalties. Mark, sign me up for that right now if you offered me it, and most people would probably say the same, as much as it would be horrible. If we end up going to penalties, you would definitely take that at this stage. Jason saying Kuhn will be chomping at the bit to prove himself against the German side. Yeah, kind of want something good from Kuhn tomorrow night. Hopefully a bit of space to run into. Go and prove the quality that you are. Stephen mentioning penalties as well. Don't know if that's realistic or just optimistic, Stephen. Maybe a bit of both. AJSC saying Bayern put in a monster shift of running to stop Leverkusen, therefore we have to stop the early goal and hang in there. I promise they will tire after 40 minutes. Wow, 40. Dear, oh dear. Yeah, I mean, like, just the whole atmosphere in the place. I think, again, we just don't want it to be an easy night for Bayern. Just, you would almost at this stage sign up for 0-0 with 5-10 minutes to go, wouldn't you? And just, let's just see if we can nick something late on. Like, you would probably sign up for that situation now.
Yeah, if you've not heard the Bayern Munich goal celebration song that they play, I don't want to hear that.
Is it
can? It's the can that goes on.
It can never be as bad as what was the someone that was at the game might be able to tell me, what was the Leipzig one? Because I was in Leipzig a couple of years ago and they had like a really annoying, it's like an old tune that you would know, and every time they scored it came on, and remember they had about 4 disallowed goals that night as well, and it was soul destroying. What tune was that?
Was it that All Around the World one?
No, it was like an old kind of.
I know what you're talking
song,
about, because I remember I was actually looking up, weirdly, stadium, different clubs doing what goal celebrations or what goal music they have, and it was a really weird one. I do remember Leipzig having a particularly odd one, but if you've watched Bayern Munich, especially when they've absolutely.
Sorry, it's I'm not going to sing it, but it's I Feel Good. You know that one?
Oh what? Yeah. James Brown. Yeah, James Brown. Yeah, I think their goal celebration song by Munich. I think it's got like the Flintstones at the start before the can.
Okay.
And I don't want to hear that, particularly in the first 5-10 minutes of the game. Because, I used to watch the Bundesliga quite avidly, and you would watch them, especially when they were like managed by Jupp Heynckes and and Pep Guardiola, and they were absolutely hammering teams. And every 5 minutes, you would hear the can. That's what Celtic don't want to hear tomorrow night. They want to keep it quiet. They want to hear the fans getting on to Bayern Munich and putting that pressure on them. So if they can keep that to a minimum, then that would be absolutely brilliant. But I know that it's a tough ask tomorrow. I just want them to do themselves proud and do themselves justice tomorrow, because it's been a pretty good European campaign, out with their last trip to Germany against Borussia Dortmund. And they're not having a great season. This is a far better side than Borussia Dortmund that Celtic are facing. But I'm hoping that they've learned their lessons from that night and they can bring that into the Bayern Munich game. Just do themselves. I hope they do themselves proud and they don't embarrass themselves. They've done well to get to this stage. It's a big ask against a good Bayern Munich side, but you never know. You're in it to win it, and you never know in these games.
You never know. Just a couple of things before we go. There's a bit of chat in the chat earlier about the referee tomorrow, and hoping it's maybe a slightly better referee than the one we had last week. The referee is from France. In fact, the whole team is French. Benoit Bastien, who might be a familiar name. He's officiated over 2 Celtic Champions League games before, and we won them both, Ryan. So he was in charge of our 3-1 win over RB Leipzig earlier this season. And he also did our win over Feyenoord last season. So both at Celtic Park, but a 100% winning record, while Benoit Bastien has been our referee. So we'll see how he gets on tomorrow. The other thing I was going to mention, people may or may not be aware of this, the game is actually not on TNT Sports tomorrow. I think for the past 10 years or so, or previously they were called BT Sport, but all Celtic European games have been on that channel for the past decade or so, I think, if not longer. Tomorrow night's game is on Amazon Prime because they've got the rights to one Tuesday night game per week. And with no English teams in action tomorrow, they've obviously plumped for, in their mind, the next best thing, which is Bayern Munich versus Celtic. So we're on Amazon Prime tomorrow night. You'll need to look into this, everyone, but I believe that they maybe have like a 30-day free trial at the moment that you might be able to sign up for and then unsubscribe before you're charged. Who's the Amazon owner again?
Jeff Bezos.
Sorry, Jeff. I'm doing you out of money, but I'm looking out for my fellow Celtic fans. So you can maybe look at doing that. And the final thing in Amazon Prime is that if you go on their YouTube channel, see, I'm getting Jeff's revenue back here. If you go on their YouTube channel, they've actually conducted an interview with Brendan Rodgers at Lennoxtown, which also features Martin O'Neill. And a kind of awkward moment when Martin O'Neill tells Brendan Rodgers that, no, you just wanted to leave, young man. Not taking any of his stuff about why Brendan Rodgers wanted to leave Celtic in 2019. So it's a 21-minute video. It also features Martin O'Neill walking around with the presenter around Lennoxtown. Apparently that was the first time Martin O'Neill had ever been to Lennoxtown since it's been finished. So that was pretty cool. Have you watched it, Ryan?
I've watched that clip. I've not watched the whole video, but I've watched that clip. It was as if he was channeling his inner Brian Clough. It was the delivery was very Brian Clough-esque, which would make sense as they worked together at Nottingham Forest for that famous period when they got their 2 European Cups. Yeah, it was quite funny. A bit of an awkward moment. Quite weird seeing the two of them in the same room, 2 very different eras, both from Northern Ireland, so they'll have that connection, both from Ireland, but 2 very successful managers. And I think that Brendan Rodgers is just hoping for a similar sort of European success that Martin O'Neill did. I think that's the one thing that's separating those 2 managers. Yeah, if he gets it, then they'll be...
Yeah.
That's what I would love that for Brendan Rodgers, because I think that's the one area where he really wants to improve, particularly in this second spell as Celtic manager. He's got all the domestic success. He's well en route to a treble this season, but he wants that European exposure and that European improvements, because it has been pretty difficult watching Celtic in Europe the past 10, 15 years, out with a couple of really famous results, with Barcelona, one in particular. There's not really been too much to shout about recently. But I think Brendan Rodgers, that's one of the main reasons why I think he came back, was to improve his European record and really make Celtic better on the Champions League stage. But yeah, I'm going to watch the rest of it after this video actually and see if there's any nice wee tidbits to talk about. But I'm sure it'll be good between those 2 managers.
Yeah, no, as I say, it kind of goes between those 3 chatting and Martin O'Neill walking around with the presenter around Lennoxtown and chatting a little bit about his own experience. So I really quite enjoyed it. Charlie wondering where we can get it. It's on YouTube. It's on Amazon Prime Sport or Amazon Prime Video Sport, I think the channel's called. So go in there and you'll get it. It'll fill 20 minutes ahead of tomorrow night's game. I believe it's the
same YouTube channel that the All or Nothing clips would have been on. So like your Jose Mourinho clips, the Arsenal clips, Manchester City, it'll all be on the same place.
Okay. We'll fill half an hour tomorrow as well when we come back on the day of the game to look ahead to it. So please join us then. But for now, we'll head off. You can get more on the website. Loads going on there, Ryan, I'm sure.
Yep, press conference day today. So the manager and a player will be coming up to face the media in Germany. I'm sure they'll be. I'm not sure what exactly they'll be doing today. I don't know if they'll be training and then heading over to Germany, or if they're already in Germany at this moment in time. I know that Tony's travelling to Germany as we speak, so he'll be in position to speak to the manager and a player later on this evening. So all of that will be available on the Celtic Way website. But yeah, just keep it tuned in to the celticway.co.uk.
Okay, thanks everyone for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. We'll catch up with you this